Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we have some incredibly rich material to cover. We're unpacking a truly fascinating lecture by Dr. David Bauer on the book of James. Specifically, we're zeroing in on chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. This passage lays out two completely different, fundamentally opposed paths of wisdom. It's an absolutely eye-opening look at what actually drives human behavior, and I am so pumped to break this down with you.
James kicks things off with a pretty provocative question. Who is wise and understanding among you? Right out of the gate, he is challenging a massive assumption that we still hold today. We so often think of wisdom as just cognitive knowledge, right? Being book smart, hoarding a bunch of facts in our heads, or being able to argue our way into intellectually convenient conclusions. But as Dr. Bauer points out, James completely dismantles that idea. True wisdom, it's not just about what you know. It is a profound matter of the essential will and how you actually act.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, what is true wisdom? Second, the illusion of earthly wisdom. Third, the traits of heavenly wisdom. And fourth, the harvest of peace. James brilliantly structures this whole thing as an ABBIism, starting on a positive note, diving deep into the negative reality, and then looping right back up to substantiate the positive.
Let's start with part 1. What is true wisdom? Action over empty speech.
The absolutely crucial point here is that true wisdom has to be proven. When you put the two side by side, wisdom from above is active. It fundamentally involves a good life and good works. False wisdom, on the other hand, is literally just verbal. It's empty boasting. Think of it kind of like flexing on social media, but with absolutely nothing real to back it up. Dr. Bauer beautifully connects this right back to James chapter 2. Just like faith without works is dead, claiming to possess wisdom without the actions to prove it is completely inauthentic. It's a total lie to claim divine insight if your life doesn't reflect it.
This active kind of wisdom operates in a very specific gear, called proudos, which translates to the meekness of wisdom. Now hold on, because we almost always misunderstand meekness today. We think it means being a doormat, or just being inherently weak. But biblically, not at all. It means having a razor-sharp, accurate perception of yourself and your own limitations. It's a humble, willing submission to God, actually trusting Him, instead of relying entirely on your own strength. And when it comes to other people, it's a total refusal to self-promote. It literally means taking others more seriously than you take yourself, and flat-out rejecting self-independence.
Which brings us to our next section, the illusion of earthly wisdom. And really, this is a descent into chaos.
Okay, so if a person completely lacks that beautiful meekness we just talked about, what steps into the void? Dr. Bauer outlines a pretty dark progression here. It kicks off with bitter jealousy, or zelos. This is a total, consuming preoccupation with yourself and your own prerogatives. And that obsession drives the second step, selfish ambition, erytheia. That's the ruthless desire to climb the ladder, grab status, and hoard possessions. This deep-seated toxic heart problem inevitably bubbles up into false boasting. The crazy part? People will operate exactly like this, tearing others down, all while ironically claiming that their insight is somehow divine.
James violently strips away this illusion using three brutal characteristics. First up, it's earthly. There is zero divine spark here, no transcendent earmarks at all. Next, it's unspiritual. The Greek word here is psyche. Scholar Paul Rees has a great explanation for this. He says it means being governed entirely by the psychic processes of the unconverted person. Basically, it's driven purely by the base impulses of human instinct, entirely devoid of the Holy Spirit. And finally, James doesn't mince words. He calls it demonic. There's an insidious, personal power of darkness actively at work in this kind of self-centered approach to life.
And this right here perfectly illustrates why James takes this so incredibly seriously. The ultimate inevitable result of earthly wisdom is akatastasia, chaos, disorder, every vile practice. Think about it. God is fundamentally a God of order, simplicity, and wholeness, right? The very essence of evil is disorder. So when individuals or even community leaders operate out of that self-centered zeal and ambition, it destroys communities. It brings absolute chaos to our personal lives. It creates a civil war within ourselves, which, let's be honest, we usually experience today as deep anxiety and burnout, and a literal war without.
But thankfully, there is a much better way. Let's pivot to section 3, the traits of heavenly wisdom, which is our upward ascent back to the positive side of the text.
Notice the heavy emphasis on priority here. When James lists out the traits of heavenly wisdom, he explicitly says it is first pure. Why put purity at the very top of the list? Because it's all about the purity of your motive.
God gives of himself generously, entirely, and completely unmixed with any selfish ulterior desire. True heavenly wisdom reflects that exact unmixed motive. Every single one of the beautiful characteristics we're about to run through actually springs directly from this one pure giving nature.
From that starting point of purity flows this incredible cascading list of traits. The wisdom from above is peaceful. It's gentle, meaning it's actively, intentionally sensitive to the needs and feelings of others rather than just being constantly combative. It's open to reason. It's full of mercy and good fruits. And Dr. Bauer is quick to stress that in the book of James, mercy is definitely not just a warm, fuzzy feeling. It means practical, boots-on-the-ground action, especially for the poor. It's also impartial, and it's completely sincere.
Take the concept of being open to reason. Eupathes. It literally means well-believing. Now, to be clear, this does not mean careless gullibility. James is absolutely not telling us to toss our discernment out the window and just believe every crazy thing that comes down the pike. But it is the exact polar opposite of that arrogant, defensive attitude that says, look, my mind is already made up, so don't confuse me with the facts. We see that attitude literally everywhere today, especially online, right? Being open to reason means genuinely listening and valuing the perspective of others enough to draw fair, thoughtful conclusions.
And then we have adiakritos, translated as impartial or without uncertainty. As Dr. Bauer's lecture highlights, James actually uses a form of this exact word earlier in his letter when he's explicitly condemning people who show favoritism. Heavenly wisdom treats everyone equally, period. It absolutely refuses to demean the poor, and it refuses to act hypocritically just to suck up to the wealthy. And notice how it's perfectly paired with being sincere. That means there's zero division between who you really are on the inside and the face you publicly present just to win people's approval.
So, when you step back and look at this grand dichotomy, the choice couldn't be clearer. Heavenly wisdom brings wholeness, health, and profound peace to both the individual and the entire community. Earthly wisdom, on the other hand, masquerading as clever insight but secretly driven by fragile ego, brings division, demonic disorder, and utter chaos. You simply cannot mix these two paths. They lead to completely different destinations.
This naturally brings us to our final section, the harvest of peace. Let's bring this all together.
The New Testament Greek word for peace is eirene, but as Dr. Bauer explains, it is deeply, deeply informed by the rich Old Testament Hebrew concept of shalom. Shalom is so much more than just the absence of a fight. It isn't just people politely ignoring each other to keep the volume down. It means true, holistic well-being. And in the Hebrew mind, your personal well-being is completely tied up in interpersonal concord. You literally cannot have deep, personal peace if you are simultaneously sowing relational chaos within your community. Peaceableness is at the very center of true well-being.
Which leads us to the beautiful climax of this entire passage. And the harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Dr. Bauer points out something truly brilliant here. This statement is actually an implicit instruction. It means that every single one of those traits we just talked about, the gentleness, the open-mindedness, the boots-on-the-ground mercy, they all have to be practiced in a way that actively builds up the peace of the community. You can't abstract them. You can't take your specific version of truth and use it as a blunt weapon to destroy other people. And inversely, you can't use peace as a flimsy excuse to avoid loving correction. They all have to work dynamically together to create true community wholeness.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question for you to take away from our explainer today. Which kind of wisdom is currently guiding your life? If you look closely at your actions and words, are they driven by a self-centered zeal? Are you subtly sowing chaos and division just to protect your own ego and your own status? Or are you operating in the active meekness of heavenly wisdom, pure, gentle, impartial, and open to reason, sowing a beautiful harvest of righteousness and peace? It's a profound choice, and it's one we have to make every single day. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this today, and keep seeking that true wisdom from above.